Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Nedarim. We are up to Perek Hey, Mishnah Aleph. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilu Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Ranbai, Eliyahu ben Burcha, Israelo ben Chana bad Miriam, Menuchatam began Eden, Amen, Leavdi ben Chaim lechaim, V'derefua Shelema, Daniel Shalom ben Rosa, Betoch Shar Chulei Israel. This chapter continues the previous chapter's discussion about one person, the Mudar, who was forbidden by a Nedel to have benefit from another person, the Madir. In the times of the Mishnah, houses did not open into the street, but into a shared courtyard. Anyone who owned a house in the courtyard was considered a partner in the courtyard itself. This Mishnah states the law where two people who own houses in the same courtyard are forbidden to receive benefit from each other. Hashutafin shenadru ana mizeh mizeh. If two partners, meaning two people whose houses open into the same courtyard, made Nedarim not to have any benefit from each other, each person said to the other, your benefit is forbidden to me, or my benefit is forbidden to you. Asurin likanes lechatzer, they are both forbidden to enter the courtyard, since each one owns a share of the whole courtyard. When one of them walks in the courtyard, he is using property partly owned by the other, which is prohibited. According to this Tana, the entire courtyard is jointly owned by everyone who owns a house there. Although any of them may use the courtyard whenever he wants, that is because each one has a right to use the other share of the property, but the fact is that the courtyard belongs to all of them. We learned in chapter 4, Mishnah 1, that a Mudar may not set foot on the Madir's property. In our case, therefore, both are forbidden to walk in the other's property in any part of the entire courtyard. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, however, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov disagrees. He says, Ze nichnas letoch shelo, v'ze nichnas letoch shelo. They are permitted to walk in the courtyard because this one is entering his own property and this one is entering his own property. According to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, when a homeowner enters the courtyard in which he lives, the part where he walks is viewed as belonging only to him at that time and not to the other homeowner. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov disagrees with the first Tana regarding the ownership of a courtyard. In his opinion, when one homeowner uses the courtyard, he is considered the only owner of that part of the courtyard for as long as he uses it. In our case, therefore, when either person walks in the courtyard, he is not guilty of using the other's property. Now, the Mishnah refers to a small courtyard. They cannot simply force each other to divide it with each taking a separate area because each part would be too small to be useful. Since dividing is not an option, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov allows each one to use the entire courtyard. However, if the courtyard is big enough for each one to have an area of 4 square amot in front of his doorway for loading and unloading packages, plus an additional 4 square amot in the middle of the courtyard for other uses, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov agrees that they are forbidden to use it. Instead, we force them to divide it between them and each one will be allowed to walk only in his part of the courtyard. Now, the Mishnah says a ruling accepted by both Tanaim. Ushnehem asurim la'amid sham rechaim v'tanur u'gadel tarnegolim. However, both of them are forbidden to set up a mill or oven in the courtyard or to raise chickens there. Even according to Eliezer ben Yaakov, each homeowner in a courtyard has the right to stop the other homeowners from doing these things in it because these activities are not usually performed in a courtyard. So if either of these two homeowners allows the other to do them, he is giving him forbidden benefit. Now the Mishnah presents the same dispute in a slightly different situation. If only one of them was forbidden by Nedel to have benefit from the other, he may not enter the courtyard that they own together since he would be using property partly owned by the Madir. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, he is permitted to use the courtyard because he can say to the other, I'm entering my property, I'm not entering your property. Like we explained, the Eliezer ben Yaakov holds that when a homeowner uses the courtyard, he is considered the only owner of the section he occupies at that time. And this dispute is basically the same as the previous one. The Mishnah repeats it to introduce the next law, which applies only here. According to both the first Tana and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, we force the one who made the Nedel, the Mudar, in this case, to sell his portion of the courtyard. There is a concern that when the Mudar sees the Madir using the courtyard, which the Madir is permitted to do, the Mudar might forget his Neder and use it as well. To avoid this, we require the Mudar to sell his share of the courtyard so that he will be prevented from using it. Even Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, who said that the Mudar is allowed to walk in the courtyard, agrees that he may not set up a mill or oven or raise chickens there like the Mishnah said earlier. He must therefore sell his partial ownership of the courtyard because if he sees the Madir doing these things, which are permitted to the Madir, he might forget and do them himself. In the Mishnah's first case, where both of them made the neder, we do not force them to sell their shares. Since neither one is allowed to use the courtyard, there is no reason for them to forget. Now the Mishnah's ruling applies where it was the mudar who made the neder, thereby prohibiting the koyer to himself. If it was the madir who prohibited the koyer to the mudar, we do not force the mudar to sell his portion because he did not create the prohibition, rather he is the victim of circumstances beyond his control. And if you would force the mudar to sell even though he had not made the neder, a homeowner could use such a neder as a way of forcing the mudar to sell his portion. And that is then of Mishna Aleph. The Rav does tell us these explanations, whoever wants to read it in the Rav. Mishnah Ben now presents a third case in which a dispute between the Tanakam of the previous Mishnah and Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov applies. If someone from the street, meaning someone who does not own a house in the courtyard, is forbidden by neder to have benefit from one of them, one of the people who do own a house there, he may not enter the courtyard since he would thereby receive benefit from the madir. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, he may enter the courtyard because he can say to the madir, I'm entering only property that belongs to another homeowner, and I'm not entering property that belongs to you. Meaning, when he walks in the courtyard, the section in which he walks is viewed as belonging only to other homeowners and not to the madir. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov ruled in the previous Mishnah that whenever a homeowner walks in this shared courtyard, the party occupies is regarded as entirely his for the time he is there. So in our Mishnah, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov extends this idea to someone who does not own a house in the courtyard, provided that one of the other homeowners needs him there, or he needs one of them, as walking in the courtyard can be viewed as an extension of that homeowner's right to use the courtyard. He may therefore walk wherever that homeowner may walk. However, if he wants to enter the courtyard for some other purpose, even Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov forbids him to do so. And the Rav does tell us, V'alacha ki Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, the halacha follows the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. And that is the Nabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.